the house. Welcome back to Bring the House podcast. I'm your host, Marshawn Fairley, along with my co-host and the star, Darren T. DT. How are you doing today?
What's going on, my brother? I'm excited for another show. We got some action-packed topics.
That we do. We do have some action-packed segments here for you today on Bring the House podcast. We're going to go ahead and get into the development of new players and college players, these great college athletes. We're going to get into the development scheme, scouting of these players, and how that affects the NFL and the front office. That being said, we're going to get into the question here. Would you say teams ruin great college players, or do they just forget how to play when they get to the league, or is it a league problem?
A lot of teams try to make a square peg fit in a round hole, right? I think that when they draft these guys, they draft them to fit into their system and not fit the make the do things that the player does well. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that comes from, you don't always want to take the best player available at X, Y, and Z position, because the best player available might not be a good fit for what you do on offense or defense. Mm-hmm. And so in the draft, within the NFL culture, we have this BPA mindset, BPA. But it's not always the best player for what you want to do offensively, or defensively, like I mentioned. One player that I have that in mind, we already discussed him a while back, is our favorite gadget, Deebo Samuels. And I just want to read from his scouting report coming out of college to the NFL. I just want to read from it really quickly,
okay,
to prove my point. This is an example of how Kyle Shanahan used Deebo Samuel the best way for Deebo Samuel due to his strengths and his weaknesses. Mm-hmm. This was by Lance Zierlein, who had a second-round projection on him, and he compared him to Pharaoh Cooper. Some of his strengths, just to highlight: he's extremely urgent and competitive. Body control, allows for early stops and turns and routes. Fearless and focused, working in the middle of the field. Works aggressively back to the football. Has running back vision with the ball in his hands. Surprising build-up speed to separate as an open field runner. Right. And some of his weaknesses is that he's compact, stocky, frame looks out of place outside, which we know he's not an outside receiver. That's been established. Needs to improve footwork to defeat press. His routes lack forward lean and vertical push. Struggles to uncover against press and trail coverage. Average burst to separate out of breaks and turns, and below average catch radius and mid-air body adjustments. So, all that to say, according to this report, we knew that Deebo Samuels was going to be more of a gadget than he would be your bona fide outside receiver doing receiver things. Mm-hmm. And so they didn't take Deebo Samuels and try to make him Keenan Allen. Yeah. They took Deebo Samuels and made him the best version of him, which is what teams should do. They should follow the model of not only them, but you mentioned Jason Kelce. Mm-hmm. One thing that puts him in the Hall of Fame when you think about when he was younger is, you mentioned that he was like an undersized center, right? One thing that he does exceptionally well is he pulls.
Oh yeah.
In their wide running game and different things of that nature, he is really good and effective at that, and he fits that. So all the highlights you see in your mind of Jason Kelce pulling, that's another example of the Eagles using Jason Kelce the correct way. See what I'm saying? Yeah. Another player comes to mind, Aldon Smith. I loathe Alden Smith, because I feel like most of his sacks when he was with the 49ers before, he started doing too much.
Yeah.
Most of his sacks came from I forget the guy's name, number
Justin
94.
Smith.
Justin Smith
Yeah.
opening him up.
What?
To come off the TE stunts.
Illegal
If you look at the majority of his sacks, it was that. Period. That scheme more than it is Alden Smith being exceptional.
Yeah.
And that's no disrespect to Alden Smith, but the fact of the matter is he wasn't beating best left tackles in the game with swims, rips, pass, bull rushes. He wasn't doing that.
No.
He was getting TE stunted from Justin Smith, right?
Yeah.
And so and a player that's similar to that for me on my board is the guy from Alabama, Dallas Turner.
Mm-hmm.
He's a freak athlete, but you don't see him doing much against offensive tackles. Just one-on-ones. I'm better than you. I have better technique than you. I'm gonna beat you. He doesn't do that often, right? He relies on his athleticism.
Yeah.
So you don't bring him in maybe a division where you have or a conference where you have a bunch of technique-oriented tackles like a couple years ago when the Rams had Andrew Whitworth and the 49ers had Trent Williams. You don't draft him in that division and expect him to go and beat Andrew Whitworth and Trent Williams. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. Bring the house.